Hey guys, and welcome back to the next episode of PG History. Today, we will talk about the unification of the German states, the man who accomplished this feat, and the aftermath of his death. So let's start all the way back in 1815 with the birth of an absolute Chad, and his name is Otto von Bismarck. He was born in Prussian Saxony, but he spent most of his childhood in the Prussian province of Father Pomerania. Not only that, but he was also very well educated and was recorded to speak German, French, English, Italian, and Polish, as well as Russian. We're going to let him live out his stupid child life for now, though, because we have to examine the state of Europe. You see, Napoleon was just defeated at the Battle of Waterloo, and that had undone basically all of his life's work, which included the dissolution of the Holy Roman Empire. And now it's back. Except it's not called the Holy Roman Empire anymore. It's this new thing. It's called the German Confederation, which is comprised of some of the Austrian Empire, most of Prussia, and a big mess of other German states. But it was ineffective at stopping any rivalry between Austria and Prussia. And governance of the Confederation was also heavily in the Austrians' favor. So anyways, let's check up on our good friend Bismarck. Uh-oh. It looks like he's a stupid college kid who found a love for things like alcohol, cigarettes, and women. He also got a pretty large amount of debt. So he did what most of you would probably do in this situation, and he ran away from his past. In this case, he went to study law at the University of Berlin and also studied agriculture at the University of Greifswald. Not only that, but he also managed to marry someone. Anyways, in 1847, he was appointed into the Prussian legislature as a representative, where he quickly made a reputation as a quite reactionary politician and was also a conservative royalist. This made him fit perfectly in with the ultra-conservative Kreislook. Then, in 1848, began what is known as the springtime of the peoples, and all of a sudden, everyone was in revolution all across Europe, including the Germans. Initially, the king had wanted to put down the revolution with military force, but instead he went into hiding. He even offered numerous concessions and even wore the revolutionary colors. And they agreed that Prussia would promulgate a constitution under the condition that all other German states should merge into a single state. And they even elected a liberal prime minister. Bismarck and the other conservatives hated this, so Bismarck, in his infinite wisdom, decided to use a military strategy that was super out of date, and that was militarizing the peasants of his estate. He went up to fight with the conservatives. Except when he got there, he was simply told to run errands. What? Oh, come on, man. You know what? I don't care. I'm going to go anyway. And I'm going to go in with a disguise. And all of this really goes to show just how determined Bismarck was to achieve his goals. But anyways, there's just one problem for Bismarck. He wasn't yet a member of the Landtag, which was the new Prussian legislature, which was created by the liberals, which, by the way, had failed due to internal fighting. Meanwhile, the conservatives had regrouped and formed a team of advisors for the now restored king, known as the Camarilla. And although the constitution was granted, it ultimately fell short of the demand met by the liberals. Anyways, he was eventually elected to the Landtag the following year and was also appointed to the Erfurt Parliament, which was an assembly of German states with the intended purpose of unification. Except it was unsuccessful in creating union since it lacked critical support from the two most important German states, Prussia and Austria. Until September of 1850, when Prussia was humiliated by the pronunciation of Olymps, which gave Austria almost complete control of the Union, which was absolutely humiliating for the average Prussian. they soon changed their minds about unification. Anyways, let's check back in on Bismarck. Oh, would you look at that? He was selected into the only central institution of the German Confederation, and he is insisting on being treated as an equal to his Austrian counterparts. You see, in the German Confederation, it was a big no-no to smoke in Parliament, unless you were an Austrian. That was okay for some reason. Anyways, he made a statement by simply pulling out a cigar and lighting it right in front of the Austrians, and the Prussians went absolutely nuts for him, and he very quickly became very popular. There were also numerous changes regarding his political opinion. For example, he used to be against the idea of German unification, but during his 8 years in the Diet of the German Confederation, he began to realize that if Prussia was to undo Austria's power over the Confederation, then they would need to ally themselves with the other German states. And he also thought it should be him and the conservatives to lead it in creating a unified nation. He also had a change of heart regarding the liberals, as he also realized that they only wanted to unite Germany more than they really wanted to overthrow traditional society. He had also wanted to better relationships with Russia and make a working relationship with France in an effort to prevent a two-front war for Germany. But he still can't do anything while he is still just another politician in the Diet. And if he wanted to make those changes, then he would have to rise the ranks. Luckily for him, though, an opportunity arose. You see, upon King Wilhelm IV's death, his brother, King Wilhelm V, frequently came into conflict with the increasingly liberal Landtag, and was also refused a full reorganization of the army. He threw a massive hissy fit, and Bismarck was the only politician capable of handling the crisis, and he was later appointed to the role of minister-president and foreign minister because of it. So now that he has more power, it's time for the reunification of Germany. There's just one problem. King Frederick VII of Denmark died on November of 1863, and the duchies of Schleswig and Holstein were quickly disputed soon after, and Prussian opinion on the Danish soured as both duchies were primarily German-speaking. And while Bismarck acknowledged that they were legally under Danish rule under the London Protocol, but he did still denounce Denmark, and with the support from Austria, he issued an ultimatum to give back Schleswig, and when they refused, war was declared. The Danish soon obviously lost, and Schleswig went to Prussia, and Holstein went given to Austria. And all was fine until Austria started being annoying and demanded that the Prussians reconsider the decisions made about Schleswig and Holstein. And then Bismarck used it as an excuse to start a war with Austria in order to have full control over the German Confederation and hopefully unify all German states. And then you have Austria trying to get the support of other German states, and now you have an all-out war within the entirety of the German Confederation, otherwise known as the Austro-Prussian War. You see, the two sides were about equal in might, and with the famous strategic general Moltke, Prussia was actually able to gain some early victories. Bismarck had even signed a secret alliance with the Italians, which forced the Austrians to divide their forces, and all in all, things were looking pretty good for Bismarck. Bismarck was shot 5 times on the 7th of March, 1866. But it's okay though, because the bullets either just grazed him or they hit him in non-lethal areas, such as his rib bones. And it was through this incident that he got the nickname the Iron Chancellor, as it looked like he had simply tanked the bullets as if he was made of pure iron. Anyways, the Prussians quickly occupied Hanover, Saxony, and Hesse before they could support Austria, just before their first defeat of the war at the Battle of Lagenzaga. on the 27th of June, a defeat which was short-lived, and the rest of their reinforcements eventually surrounded them, and the Austrians were ultimately forced to surrender. Then, the Prussian First Army and the Prussian Army of Elbe attacked the Austrian army at the Battle of Königgrätz. The Austrians numbered at just over 200,000, while the Prussians barely had 125,000, but it did not deter them from their intelligent aggression that they had prior to the battle, and quickly opened fire on the Austrian right flank. Meanwhile, General Edward Frederick Charles von Falkenstein led the Prussian 7th Division into a successful attack on 2 Austrian corps in the swept forest. Then, the First Army in the battle successfully took over Sadova, but the Prussian 8th and 4th Divisions were unable to cross the Bistris River due to heavy Austrian artillery fire. While the Austrians did outnumber the Prussians, they were unable to fight at close range, which was crucial in the battle's outcome. Although the Prussians were temporarily pushed back, they were joined by more Prussian reinforcements as the Prussian Second Army entered the battle. And now that the Prussians were almost completely unified, the Austrian defense began to crumble, and that was a complete catastrophe for the Austrians. Even worse so, the Prussians continued to chase and engage them the entire journey back to Austria. At the end of the day, Austria never stood a chance despite their superior military, which resulted in the Peace of Prague, which gave Russia all states in the German Confederation, minus the Austrian parts and southern Germany. These German states then merged to form the North German Confederation. Prussians were actually very lenient on the Austrians. Why, you may ask? Well, asked Bismarck. Hey Bismarck, you want to look at some of the parts of my new treaty for the Austrians? Sure, as long as it's not to... Wait a minute. What is this? This is way too strict. You need to put this in place instead. If the terms are too harsh, then Austria won't want to be our friends. And if they aren't our friends, then no one important is our friend, which is bad. You sure? Because I actually spent a lot of time coming up with these terms. If you don't put mine in place, I will jump out the window. You serious? Yes, absolutely. Okay, fine. Just please don't jump out the window. You're my best advisor. Now you might notice that they technically didn't unite all of Germany. To do that, they must fight the most fearsome opponent in all of Europe, the French. You see, after the Austro-Prussian War, high tensions between Germany and France had increased, and both sides secretly wanted a war anyways, because France saw it as a good way to increase their power and influence, and the Germans thought an external enemy would make it easier to unite all the German peoples. Except there's just one problem. France needs to be the aggressor if they want to unite the German states. So both sides continuously annoyed each other, trying to get the other to declare war. But everything came to a head in 1870 when German Prince Leopold was offered the Spanish throne. But when France prevented this, and also demanded that Wilhelm promise that no one from the House of Hohenzollern ever attempt to get the Spanish throne, and both sides saw that as the final straw. Critically, though, the French were actually the ones to declare war, and made them look like the aggressors to the German states, and they all rallied to Prussia's support. And with the military genius of Moltke, they won victory after victory, and both French armies were captured at Sedan and Metz, and had also taken Napoleon III as prisoner. and was forced to surrender. Unlike the Austrians, Bismarck didn't really want friendship with the French, and so the terms were much harsher on them. The French had to give Germany the territory of Alsace-Lorraine, and they had to pay them 5 billion francs of compensation. All in all, it was completely humiliating for the French. After the war, Bismarck acted almost immediately to strike a deal with the southern German states, promising them special privileges if they agreed to join the Union. And they eventually agreed, and in that moment, all of Germany's countries, independent states, and free cities all united to form the Second Reich, establishing Germany as the dominant power in Central Europe. And Bismarck was appointed first imperial chancellor of the empire as well. The empire in question was among the greatest economic and industrial powers of the world, and arguably one of the greatest and most efficient armies in the world. Bismarck spent the rest of his life trying to make friends with the hostile countries around them, such as Russia and Britain. His efforts to prevent a two-front war for Germany, as he felt that there was a great war on the horizon, beginning with some damned foolish thing in the Balkans. He was right.